What's up, everybody? So one of the things that I commonly see when I do technique analysis reviews, which I offer as a service on my website, as well as consultation calls, one of the most common things that I see is something that we're going to talk about today. So if you want to improve your acceleration, you might have this issue, so I'd suggest sticking around, watching to the end of the video. When we accelerate, we have to set ourselves up into positions that are biomechanically efficient. What we do to run our fastest time from, say, 0 to 10 meters is going to be different than what we should do if we want to run a fast 40-yard, 60-meter, or 100-meter dash. You could stand here, start, fall your way through the 10-meter line, and you may run a fairly good time, but the positions that you're going to be in at 10 meters, the rhythm, the posture, where you're contacting the ground, all of those things are going to fall apart if you don't set yourself up properly earlier in that sprint to be in the right positions further down the track. So when we look at acceleration, we need to not only look at acceleration in the vacuum of, how do I beat everyone out of the blocks? How do I get to 5 meters as fast as possible? How do I get to 10 meters as fast as possible? We have to think about how the acceleration fits into the entire progression of the race or of the sprint. So that way we're not doing something early in the sprint that shoots ourselves in the foot down the track. And that's the thing that we're going to talk about today. So when I look at videos that people send me, one of the most common things that I see is that the athlete is waiting for the ground. They wait for the ground, they land on the ground, then they push behind themselves. So they're running, their foot sort of passively lands on the ground, it just sort of crashes onto the ground, they overcome that position, and then they push behind themselves. Now, this is very common, you see it a lot at high school track meets, you see it a lot in football players, things like that. The problem is, for one, if you wait for the ground, okay, if you have looked at some of my content before, like the video I made about, things that contribute to running fast, I forget what the name is, but you can look it up, it's one of my recent videos. One of the things that makes you run fast is thigh angular velocity, and another thing is vertical touchdown velocity, and those two, data metrics are, very closely related to one another. Basically, you improve one, you'll probably improve the other. So let's think about it for a second. If I'm running and I passively wait for the ground, meaning as I swing my leg through, it just sort of sets down on the ground, how much thigh angular velocity and how much of a vertical touchdown velocity can I get if my foot is just passively coming down to the ground, right? What we want to do instead is we want to think about, as we're moving across the track, as we're in the air and we're in the swing phase of sprinting where neither of your legs are in contact with the ground, what you need to be doing is proactively attacking the ground through the air, so that way you can increase thigh angular velocity, vertical touchdown velocity, and that's going to increase the amount of force that you can produce each step. So we need to get away from thinking about sprinting as something where we wait for the ground, we feel the ground, and then we push, where we're sort of reacting to the ground. Instead, we need to think about sprinting as something that is very proactive, where as our limbs are in the air, we're setting ourselves up to attack through the air into the ground, because that attack into the ground, the more we can accelerate that limb into the ground through the air, the more force we're going to produce on the ground, and that's going to send us into our next stride. So the first main point that we need to think about with sprinting is that we need to be doing the movements that we really focus on in sprinting, that we're really putting a lot of intent into, are the movements that are happening in the air. Why do we not want to focus on the ground? Well, the way that I look at it is sprinting happens very fast. And, by the time that you sense that your foot has landed on the ground, and then those sensory signals go up to your brain, and then you're able to consciously register them, and then you say, oh, I'm on the ground, now I need to push. You send that down through the body, and then you have that push happen. From the time that you sense that to you try to make the movement, and then the movement occurs, there's going to be some latency there. There's going to be a delay. So if you're constantly waiting to feel the ground, the movements that you're going to be intentionally creating are going to be further back, or they're going to be late, so to speak, because by the time you sense the ground and you push into it, that moment in time has passed. You're now in a different position, and you're pushing late in the stride cycle. One of the things that I've talked about many times on this channel is the concept of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the force, approximately, in elite sprinters is produced immediately when they hit the ground. So let's think about it. If I wait for the ground, I sort of crash land onto the ground passively. I'm not accelerating my leg through the air into the ground, but I just sort of land on the ground. and I have to overcome that position, because if I just land on the ground, I'm usually not in a very, biomechanically efficient position to apply force, so I have to pass over that point of contact, and then I push. The force production that's happening is going to be late in the ground contact. And then if we add to that we're waiting consciously, we're waiting for the ground, we're waiting to feel the ground, and then we push, that force application is going to be late. Problem with that is not only are you not going to produce a lot of force on that step, so that step is going to suck, but furthermore, if you are waiting to push, once again, by the time that you push and you sense, oh, it's time to stop pushing, the time to stop pushing has already occurred. So by the time that you sense that you should stop pushing and then you try to recover the leg, you're going to be late in that stride cycle. You're not going to be bringing that leg to the front soon enough. You're not going to be in a position to set up that aggressive attack through the air into the ground, and it sort of becomes a positive feedback loop. Positive in that it continues to perpetuate itself, not positive in that it's good. And so, if you're waiting for the ground, which is one of the most common things we're going to see, it's not going to work out for you as far as being in, the positions, having the right timing and all that to apply force properly, to allow yourself to sprint down the track as fast as possible. So when you're sprinting, I think the point that you really need to focus on and be intentional about when you're sprinting is the point from when, imagine I'm not leaning on a, whatever this is, I think it's all those pellets for the field. Imagine that I'm sprinting right now, okay? The thing that we're gonna really focus on is from the point where my knee is here. It's not supposed to be super high, but when the knee is up at its highest position, you're focusing from here to here. So your knee is up, you sense that the knee is up, your leg is coming through, you feel, all right, we're about there, and then boom, you strike down and back through the air under you. You do not get to this point and reach forward, okay? We do not reach for the ground. We do not try to reach and pull ourselves over the ground. Knee is up. We attack through the air, down and back under our hips to apply force to the ground. So I think if you're able to grasp this concept, it's going to allow you to accelerate faster. It's going to allow you to be more efficient when you sprint. You're going to be less likely to have a hamstring injury, probably not going to have as many ankle injuries because you're not smashing your ankle into the ground with a bunch of braking forces each step. And it's going to feel better. You're going to feel more athletic because you're not falling, catching yourself, pushing, and then getting stuck with a bunch of backside mechanics. You'll have a nice balance of front side and backside mechanics. You'll be applying force properly into the ground. All of that's going to equate to being able to run faster, be less likely to get injured, and you're going to have a lot more fun, and it's going to feel better to sprint. So consider this, apply it to your sprinting. Check out my website, sprintingworkouts.com, if you need help. And other than that, I'll catch you guys later. I'm out.